Hi, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to do a review of last Saturday's Healing Humanities UK stories. I attended it, recorded some bits and pieces, so I've decided to edit bits down. I do apologise, some of the video quality wasn't the best and the audio's not terrific, but I've got to cut it down to the best I can. So once we got started, there was a good 100+ people there, and obviously Kerry did an introduction of the reasons why they were doing this, gave us a bit more background on what's going on with the film, and obviously advised us that there's a series involved as well that's going to follow up after the film because of the level and quality of the footage that they have generated.
We wanted to give you a quick update on the documentary, Healing Humanity. We just filmed 3 more individuals here in the UK. Lee Copus, Lauren Tucker, and Alex Cannon, and they absolutely knocked it out of the park. It was incredible. We just finished filming them yesterday, and that concludes, how many?
42.
42 interviews we've done for the documentary, and we're also doing a subsequent series afterwards. We're on the home stretch right now. We have about 4 more interviews to do. The next one will be Tammy Peterson in Arizona, and we got a couple meetups we're going to be doing out there. I wanted to do a couple quick shout outs here to some of these individuals, the speakers first. These guys are absolutely incredible. I was tearing up yesterday listening to Lauren in particular. She's got an incredible story. Each of these speakers are going to be sharing an inspiring carnivore story with you.
We started off with Kerry giving us a brief background of his story.
Left, I was 262 pounds, 100 pounds heavier than I am now. My daughter Alyssa, she sent me that picture about 100 days into Carnivore, and she said, "Dang, Dad, you were a real fatty McButterpants before." So that's where I got that picture from. I had gout for about 18 months before I found Carnivore, and it hurt so bad I could barely step down on my foot. My daughter that called me Fatty McButterpants also has footage of me riding around on an electric scooter at the grocery store because I couldn't walk through the grocery store. My foot hurt so bad from the gout. I was diagnosed with sleep apnea. I had to use one of those CPAP machines for many, many years. I hated that thing. I absolutely despised it. I was diagnosed with IBS. My stomach always hurt. It was always just bubbling and gurgling, and every time I would eat, my stomach would hurt. I tried all sorts of special diets, every diet out there, and nothing helped the IBS.
So Kerry went into more details about his story and his journey, and if you want to get more information, then visit his channel, Homestead How. Brilliant channel, absolutely loaded with information. Kerry's sidekick on the whole documentary project is Adam. So Adam was given the opportunity to introduce himself, so I've just took a few sections of what Adam presented.
If we were in the wrong place, so this is me. I'm a photographer by trade and own my own business. Actually, if you look here in the picture where I'm in the paint shirt, I actually was sort of fat back in the day, and with our cat Ella, she's one of our precious cats that we have, but you can see she's sitting on the fat tire there. So finding Carnivore has helped me to reduce weight, but that's not why I started. I actually started because of an autoimmune condition, vitiligo, and that's basically a disease that you don't produce melanin in certain areas of your body. So around my waist, there's no melanin. I never show pictures of that, but it started to appear on my arms after 2 years on a vegan diet, raw vegan diet. And the reason that I was on that diet was in solidarity with a business partner of mine that he went on the raw vegan diet to get rid of prostate cancer. So a friend of his, 17 years prior, had beat prostate cancer doing the raw vegan diet, and he decided that was for him. So in solidarity with him, I started that diet. Well, coincidentally, my health started to get worse over that 2 years of eating that raw vegan diet. Did some research into, can I fix this situation with vitiligo? Now, I had a host of other issues. Obviously I was overweight, I had plantar fasciitis.
Adam then went on about a major road accident he had and the mental damage that he suffered from that. So here's a clip for that.
I was the 3rd car in line out of 4 cars that got hit by this semi that was carrying a full load of steel. The first person in line actually passed away, and the 3 of us that were in front of them actually didn't do that well either. So this is where I got my traumatic brain injury. Was Basically, my truck is in the foreground. It went up the wall and came back down. Paramedic actually took this photo for me. But so that's what happened as far as the occurrence with my brain injury. So the middle picture is my impression of Darth Vader.
Then it was the turn of Alex Cannon, aka Carnivore for Life.
This picture, by the way, I carry around with me. I was fortunate to go on Dr. Barry's channel. I showed Dr. Barry, I showed Dr. Chafee, I showed Dr. Kiltz, and I'm like, oh, I X'd out the 65. You're 66 now, right?
66, yeah.
I X'd out the 65. I'm like, guess how old this guy is on the right? And I think Dr. Chafee said, 35? I don't know. Everyone, Dr. Hampton was my favorite. He said, woo-wee, that's something right there. So, shout out Alex.
Cheers, thank you very much. Okay, good afternoon everybody. It's good to see you all here today. Healing humanity, inspiring stories. My story, like most stories, we have a good bit and a not so good bit. I think that's right, isn't it? My story started in 2008. A couple of things happened, a couple of milestones. I turned 50 and then was offered early retirement, much against my better, wishes. I didn't want to leave my job, but the offer was too good to be true. So August, I was 50, September, I had retirement, and then in December, I had a new replacement knee. So it wasn't all going well. The knee problem was the thing because I struggled with weight. At the time, I was 210 pounds, which is 15 stones, I think. I'll make sure it says pounds. And I wasn't in a good place consciously, or subconsciously I was down. I had no direction, but I took the retirement. Stopped doing all my sports because I had a new knee, but I hadn't planned for it and I just didn't know what to do next. So what did I do? I started drinking alcohol a lot more. It became a bit of a reward, a stress buster, and I would spend midweek, pump day, as they say in the States, and I would get a bottle of wine out. My wife would be on a shift pattern.
Alex then detailed about his fight with depression, obesity, and how discovering the carnivore diet really turned his life around. So already there's 3 guys spoken, all having similar issues in terms of the mental as well as the physical and the biological impact. So there's clearly something in this. The next to speak was Richard, the Keto Pro, and he shared his journey. He made a really interesting presentation about how his life was pretty much in a box. So it was either his house, his car, his office. Everything was in a box where he was able to break free of that. And I've tried to capture some of that in this clip.
So a super long story short, I'm not going to get into as much detail, otherwise we'd be here for many more hours, but I saw 107 pound fat loss. I reversed my diabetes, everything else completely medication free. Most importantly, I was now depression and anxiety free. Now, all of these things occurred within 12 months of gravitating into this way of living, and I did so via incremental changes. I didn't wake up deciding to be a carnivore. I didn't even know what carnivore was. I had no training in nutrition. So I knew the bread bloated me. So I removed the bread, purely for aesthetic purposes, because I thought if I can remove the bread and reduce the bloat, then I wouldn't appear to be so overweight. But something miraculous happened. Within 2 months, I lost 28 pound rather. Yeah, I wasn't 28 stone. 28 pounds, so 2 stone in 2 months. And then I learned more about the low-carb ketogenic lifestyles, and through incremental changes from low-carb to dirty keto, to a standard keto, clean keto, strict keto, and now eventually carnivore. So my journey has taken place for well over a decade. I've been on a ketogenic journey for 10, maybe 12 years, I lose count. Out of that, I've been carnivore for 5 to 10, and there's no going back for me, but what I found when I gravitated into this way of eating is I lost a lot of weight. I probably looked ill to many people, but I felt the best that I'd ever felt. But I had friends and family concerned because of the weight loss. I had doctors concerned because I was eating red meat, so on and so forth. I was incredibly lean. I'd lost 107 pounds, that's 7.5 stone, so I was quite literally, so at my peak, I was 17 stone. So this image that I showed you in the beginning, I'm back stuck in my mind. So look, that image that I showed you earlier, which I think we've got coming up again. When I was in that picture, I was 14 stone, but at my peak I was 17. 17 stone at my peak. I didn't have any pictures taken after that because I couldn't bear to see myself. And in fact, it crept up on me. I didn't realise that I was so overweight. I didn't realise I was so sick. And I think this is quite common with many people who tend to gravitate into this size without any understanding or noticing that you're gaining this weight and becoming sicker. But this is what happened. These all occurred within 12 months. This, for full disclosure, took 4 to 5 years. But I've put it up there because I like the picture. So beyond this, I began training. Now, I was incredibly skinny, but I started to train because I had more energy. I started to build muscle at an incredible rate. At an absolutely incredible rate. I almost got back up to the same weight that I was when I was clinically obese. I eventually became a professional bodybuilder. So I became British champion and eventually European champion. And I'm not saying that because I want you guys to think, oh, this is incredible, ooh, it's all crap. This journey through changing my lifestyle quite literally saw me from being unable to walk up a flight of stairs or without stopping or being severely out of breath to becoming #1 in Europe as a professional sports person. I did say I didn't want to clap, but I'll take it. So look, I was 14 stone there. At my peak, I was 17. And I'm not telling you this, again, because I want the applause. It's because any one of us can do this. I'm not genetically gifted, as we're going to see as we move along. I'm considerably smaller now. I've come away from bodybuilding because it's not healthy. And I'll explain why maybe later if we get time. But now I've gravitated into running, endurance sports, and now I'm going to venture into competing in high rocks. So this is why I'm considerably smaller. But these images were taken 15 years apart, and you can see the image on the right. I'm incredibly inflamed. I've actually got boils all over my face, and this was me on a good day. And I'm wearing makeup there. This was me on a night out. So I think I look considerably younger in the image on the left than I do. It's certainly healthier, and certainly far less inflamed. Now this was done on an in-body composition machine. My body fat percentage in that picture that I showed you earlier, ripped and shredded, was 3%, which took place about 2 weeks after I competed and won the European Championship. So I was probably around about 2% during this. I was carrying around 2.3 kilograms of fat in my entire body. And this is incredible. This isn't healthy, by the way. It's not healthy to be this lean. And this is why I've gravitated. But it was fit for purpose. I had a goal to achieve. I had a box I wanted to break. And I broke that box and managed to achieve my goals. And there it is, winning. I think this was the British Championship or one around that time. But changing my diet is what allowed me to do this. I've always tried to train throughout my life. And the big factor was changing my diet. But I'm not genetically gifted. This was my dad. He died in his 60s of heart complications. I didn't know him very well because he left when I was 3. But you can see me in his face. This was my destiny. This is where I was heading. This is what my genes were telling me that I was designed to become. But I decided to beat my genes. Everybody says it's in my genes. Everyone says it runs in my family. Well, that's rubbish, because we can beat our genes by something called epigenetics. I'm not going to go into too much in the science today. You can catch up with Steve and I on the lives if you want to get into more detail. But epigenetics, in simple terms, many of us only access part of our DNA. And through epigenetics, we can tap and we can quite literally flick the switch and become fit and healthy. We can become the best versions of ourselves. And in simple terms, on a daily basis, we take photocopies of our DNA. So this is the DNA. It's called the chromatin. It's tightly wrapped around histone proteins. And this allows photocopies. So each and every one of us takes photocopies of our DNA in the form of mRNA, which is sent to another part of the cell called the ribosome. So as it runs through this ribosome, if you like, this is a machine that reads the code. So these pillars are nucleotides. Collectively, they're called codons. And they signal the attraction of certain amino acids, which we get from animal proteins, by the way. So we consume animal proteins. These break down into amino acids. And as we copy this mRNA and run it through the ribosome, they attach chains of amino acids, which are called peptides. And these peptides go on to heal and repair every single cell within our body. This happens countless amounts of times per day in each and every one of us. Now, our epigenetics are controlled predominantly by diet. I've put 75% up there, but I would argue it's considerably higher. And what we want to do to enable this is to have our DNA to be open and available for expression. And again, I'm not going to get too much into detail with this, but there are certain things that will prevent this. And these plants, they have genotoxic effects. They cause clastogenesis. They damage DNA. And meat does the opposite. meat heals. In fact, meat is the only thing that we know that will increase the length of the telomeres. I'm not going to get too much into the science, as I say, but look, the simple answer is just eat meat. And it's as simple as that. So if there's 3 words you take away from today, just eat meat. And it is as simple as this. Now, how are we for time? We got 2 good. Awesome. Okay. Now, I tested this at an event that I spoke at recently, which I think a lot of you can attest to. So I gravitated into this way of living, and I saw incredible benefits. And I went back to my doctor, and I was like, hey doc, look, I've lost all this weight. I'm super fit and healthy. I'm eating these animal proteins. And he said to me, red meat causes cancer. You know, saturated fats clog your arteries. You're too skinny. You look unhealthy. You're going to have to go back to eating the way that you consumed previously, which is what led me to being unfit and unhealthy. So I left the surgery feeling a little bit despaired. I felt ostracised, isolated, and alone. I went home, my friends and family. Look guys, look at all this weight I've lost. I'm super fit and healthy. I feel the best that I'd ever felt in my life. They said the same thing. You've lost too much weight. Red meat causes cancer. Saturated fats are going to clog your arteries. You need to go back to eating the foods that you were previously. This made me feel ostracised, isolated, and alone. Even today, friends and family go on holidays. They go out for meals. I no longer get invited. I'm the freak that eats meat that nobody wants to invite along. You know, and again, even to this day, this has led me to feel ostracised, isolated, and alone. Now I wonder, out of everyone in this room, by a show of hands, or in fact, let's stand up, if any of you can attest to any of the things that I've just said there, or the list of things that I mentioned in the first slide, stand up for me. And remain standing. It's a big portion of the room. Guys, take a look around. Take a look around. This is our community. This is our community. We are no longer alone. Thank you.
I think Richard makes some absolutely brilliant points. Interestingly, again, mental health as much as physical health was affected and improved on this lifestyle. Then we went on to Lauren's story, and again, very emotional story. I didn't record all of it, but I recorded a fair chunk of it, and here's what I've got.
We run a dairy farm in Somerset. When I say we, that's me and my husband, and we have 3 I say young children. We have 11, 7 and 5, so you know, a little bit of a range. So my story started back in 2021, the end of 2021. I suddenly developed a lump in my throat. I was struggling to swallow. It just felt like I had an obstruction there. Every time that I did swallow, I just felt like I couldn't quite get it down. So back then, doing what I used to do, I'd just go to the doctors, and I sat in the doctor's office, and he had a look down my throat, and he said it could potentially be acid reflux, but it could also potentially be strep throat. We don't know which it is, so we're going to give you medication for both to cover what it could potentially be. So I came away with omeprazole, which I'm sure many people are aware of, which is a PPI, an acid blocker for the acid reflux. And I also came away with antibiotics for strep throat. So I came away all happy, thinking, right, great, got my answer, I'm going to be healed like within 2 days or something. Came home, started taking both medications straight away, and within a week, I think it took about a week, I was just worse than I actually was in the beginning. So at this point I realised something's not quite right. It's definitely not the strep throat if the antibiotics aren't working. It could potentially be the acid reflux, but I just still wasn't sure. So I phoned the doctor, and they didn't want to see me, they just spoke to me over the phone. And they said, I think the best thing that we can do for you is to double the strength of your omeprazole. So instead of taking just 1 in the morning, now take 2 in the morning. So again, great, yeah, I'm feeling happy. I'm thinking this is what's going to cure me. So start taking the 2 omeprazole. Again, I left it about a week and not feeling any better, and I'm just getting worse and worse and worse. And at this point, everything that I'm eating, I'm starting to react to. So every meal, all of a sudden my eyes start swelling. All of a sudden, I'm like having ulcers in my mouth, swollen glands, and just everything was going wrong. And I was just feeling worse and worse as time went on. Again, I phone the doctor and I say, what's going on? And they say, we think we better put you in for a camera down the front, an endoscopy. So great, yeah, so go in and have my endoscopy. I had sedation to make the process more comfortable. After the endoscopy, I was sent on my way. Bearing in mind, I was a little bit, from the sedation, I wasn't quite with it. I wasn't completely out of it, but I just wasn't quite with it. My husband was waiting outside to pick me up in the car. I got in the car and he says, well, how did you get on? And I'm like, oh, I don't know actually. Nobody said anything to me. I don't actually know, but I have got this piece of paper that I've come away with. So we opened the piece of paper and there it says that I have a grade A esophagitis and lesions. So I wasn't even explained to like what this even is. I had no idea. I have no medical background. I have no idea what esophagitis is. I have no idea what lesions are. But it did say that they had taken biopsies of it. So as soon as I saw the word biopsies, I'm like, that's bad. So I get home and I ring the hospital and I just say, can somebody please explain to me what my diagnosis was? I have no idea. So they said, yeah, you've got grade A esophagitis. I did actually look it up on Google before, so I had a little bit of an idea of what the esophagitis was, where the acid reflux is coming back up and it's just basically scarred my throat, my esophagus. It's just scarred it. And the tight feeling that I was getting was just where it was scarred and kind of like closed up. So they said, that's what it is. We took the biopsies because we found a couple of lesions that don't look very good, so we want to send those off and get some results from those. So obviously at that time, it was a very hard time for me because in my head, all I could think of was, oh my goodness, I've got cancer. And that was all I could think of then for a little while. I also had to say to them, right, that's very well you've given me my diagnosis, but so where do we go from here? What do we do about this? So they said, the medication that you were on, the omeprazole, that is the answer to healing your problem. And I'm thinking, is it? I've been on these omeprazole now for weeks and nothing's changed. I'm just getting worse and worse. So they said, what we'll do is we'll now double your double dose. So I'm now, at this point, I'm currently on 2 omeprazole in the morning, and they then told me to take 2 omeprazole in the evening. So again, I went away doing that, actually thinking maybe I'm somebody who just needs a bit more medication to make me feel better. But I just had such trust in the doctors, like whatever they said was gospel to me, and I just thought they had my back, so I'm doing whatever they said. So I went away and done that, and as you can probably guess, nothing happened. I just got worse and worse again, and at this point I just fell into such a deep depression. I wasn't myself. I couldn't eat anything. I was excluded socially. I'm sure many of you can relate. Everything is revolved around food, so I'd be invited out for dinner, I'd be invited around somebody's house, they say, come over for dinner, come to a party, they've got a great big spread there, come to a barbecue, and I'm just like, I can't do any of this, I can't eat. At this point, I've gone down to, apologies, I don't know pounds, so I'm going to use stones. I went down to 7.5 stone, sorry. And today I'm 9.5 stone, and I think 9.5 stone is a good weight, a good healthy weight. So if you imagine me 2 stone less than what I am now, I was very skinny. I didn't look good. And my husband actually said at one point, he said, we've got to do something because he's like, I can see all your spine like through your t-shirt in the back, and it just doesn't look nice. So at this point, we knew I was kind of in trouble. So from that moment on, I went to the doctor. I went back to the doctor. At this point, I didn't really know if I wanted to, but I was just in a desperate place. I'd gone into this deep depression. I was waking up every single morning, and my thoughts were, again, sorry if I get emotional, but my thoughts were just, I didn't want to wake up. That's how it was. So, sorry. I wasn't looking after my children. I would wake up, I'd come down, sit on the sofa, I'd ignore them. I was not a good wife, I was not a good man. And it was just the worst place I was in my entire life. Sorry, bear with me 1 second. I'll get back to it. Yeah, so I went back to the doctor and I basically broke down like this in the doctor's surgery, and I just said, I begged, I said, I need help, I need somebody to help me, I'm not well. And I just felt like before this point I'd just been brushed off and brushed off and brushed off. And I just broke down in tears and I said, I can't eat anything, I can't go anywhere, I can't do anything, I'm so like socially excluded. And he had a look on his screen, he saw the medication I was on. And he said, I don't know why you're crying. He said, you're on the medication that should make you better. On omeprazole, you should be able to eat whatever you want to eat and be fine. So at this point it made me feel worse because I'm like, why me? I'm like, why, if this works for everybody else, why am I taking this much omeprazole and being told that I should be able to eat what I want to eat, which at the time I will admit was the standard Western diet. I was eating junk food. Not only junk food, I had like what I would say a balanced diet, but I did have the odd, you know, like Richard was saying, the takeaway, and I had the odd thing. So I was just thinking, why can't I eat what I want to eat and not get better? Anyway, so he just said to me, he said, I can tell that you have a bit of anxiety and depression, so we're going to put you on some antidepressants. So from that visit to the doctor, I get given antidepressants. So I come away and I actually start taking these antidepressants because I was desperate. I was going to do absolutely anything. I start taking the antidepressants, and I think about 2 or 3 days in, I just had a moment where I was just like, what am I doing? I'm on these 4 omeprazole, and I'm thinking, these omeprazole aren't even making me feel any better, so why am I taking them? And same with the antidepressants. I know it was only like 2 or 3 days in, but I just had this moment where I was just like, I'm not taking any medication. None of this is making me any better. So from that point, I literally just got all my medication, I just threw it in the bin, and I thought, I'm done with this. And I thought, I'm on my own here. I've got to figure out myself how I get myself better because nobody else is helping me. So with that, I decided to search for a nutritionist. So I found a nutritionist who was local to me. She was a naturopath and also a herbalist. And she was great in the beginning. So she was the first person who actually sat me down and felt, she sat me down for about 2 hours and she asked me my whole history of my life. She wanted to know what vaccinations I'd had. She wanted to know past medication, past illnesses. She literally unpicked my whole life in 2 hours. And I came away from there feeling like I've actually been listened to today. Somebody's listened to me, which was something, and that actually that alone made me feel so much better. But she also told me to cut out the gluten and cut out dairy, like 2 of the main inflammatory food groups. So I went away and I did that, which I did. I must admit, it took away the lump feeling in my throat, so I thought, I'm on something here, this is helping. But she also told me, again, I think a lot of us can relate to the same thing, to not eat fat, and if I was to eat animal protein, make sure it's chicken. If it's chicken, don't eat the skin. If it's salmon, don't eat the skin. But she basically told me to eat chicken and salmon, nothing else, definitely no red meat. And she said you want a real diverse range of vegetables and grains in your diet. So she had told me that I had a candida overgrowth in my gut, and this was the issue that I needed to sort out. So I come away, I cut out the gluten and the dairy, and I literally just went on to this low-fat protein diet, and I was having about 6 or 7 different vegetables a day with my meals, and then just filled with quinoa or rice, like all different grains. I had it piled high, and I would eat that meal. I'd finish the meal, and I couldn't eat that 2 or 3 times over because I was starving. And remember, at this point as well, I'm still at 7.5 stone, so my body is just physically in a starved state. Because of being starving, I decided that I was going to add porridge oats in. So, and I basically used that as a kind of dessert. So after every meal, because I was still so hungry, I would then make myself a big bowl of porridge with kefir, however anybody says it, and that would make me feel full. And I was doing that 2 or 3 times a day to make me feel like I wasn't stuffing. On top of that, it was forced upon me by my nutritionist that fibre feeds the good bacteria, so get all the fibre that you can in. And I decided off my own back that I'm going to get a fibre supplement as well. So I found this product called inulin, and every meal, every bowl of porridge, I would just take a scoop and I would sprinkle, because I'm just like, I'm feeding this good bacteria, I'm getting this bad bacteria out. So I'd sprinkle it all with this inulin powder. So it wasn't long after that. I'd never ever suffered with constipation in my life before, but after switching to this diet, all of a sudden I'm constipated. And one day the constipation got so bad, I was just doubled up in pain, and I just did not know what to do with myself. I could not walk. I was in such agony. My husband came in that night from milking, and he was like, oh my God. He's like, what is the matter with you? I said, I don't know. I said, I think I've just got really bad constipation. I said, I'm in so much pain and agony. At this point, I start throwing up. I'm just so bad.
Unfortunately, someone actually got up and knocked my camera, so I unfortunately wasn't able to carry on recording Lauren's story. But again, if you visit her YouTube, which is Farming Life, Carnivore Life, again, I'll put a link below. You'll be able to find her full story. So that was a bit frustrating. And then the final speaker of the day was Lee Copus, who is Kent Carnivore. Lee's story is an incredible story too. So here's some clips of that.
On his own YouTube channel, Kent Carnivore, Lee Copus. I watched so many of your videos. I really enjoy what you're doing. Again, links in the description. Go follow, subscribe, support Lauren's YouTube channel, everyone that's been speaking. Lee Copus.
It's great to be here, so thanks for having me. I haven't got a slide presentation. In fact, I thought I'd just bring one of these. So many of you might know my story, but this funny contraption here, it's a funny thing. It's the reason why I became severely depressed, but it's also the reason why I'm alive. So my story, well, it starts back in 2012, I guess, really, when I got my diagnosis with ulcerative colitis. So it's an inflammatory bowel disease. And I have to wear one of these now permanently to go number 2, unfortunately, because I lost my entire colon in my 20s. And people are saying this carnivore diet thing is an extreme diet. I would say that losing your colon in your 20s is pretty extreme. And the reason why I lost my colon was because I was eating the wrong stuff. Now, when I went to the doctors with my diagnosis, I think if he said, Lee, you just need to be eating meat, fat, stay away from the grains, the gluten, the fibre, I think it would have been okay. Because at this point it was very mild, it's very low end. You could have classed this as proctitis, so it's way, way low down. I wasn't on medication right off the bat, so it was quite manageable. And really at that point in my life, there was a big room for intervening on my lifestyle, my diet and things like this. And I think I would have got myself out of trouble. But unfortunately, the mainstream advice, you know, many doctors, not like Dr. Kiltz and Barry and Chapey and all these wonderful people, they're not trained in nutrition, and so it's all allopathic medicine based. And of course, this by definition is just drugs you take that will mask symptoms, suppress symptoms, might make you feel a little bit better for a short period of time, but these aren't going to address meaningfully root cause, and your situation isn't going to get any better for you. In fact, a lot of the time this stuff just exacerbates the issues, and unfortunately for me, I was quite naive and I listened to everything that the doctor said. I put a lot of trust in these people. I went down there quite worried about my health, presented with bloody diarrhoea and very nasty symptoms, and typically you go in and out of what we call flare-ups. And so a flare-up would be, you know, those symptoms come about, you feel run down, you lose your confidence, you know, you're going to the toilet quite a lot of the time in the day, and you wouldn't want to stray too far from your house. And where I live in the Garden of England, Kent, you're kind of stuck sometimes, you know, for toilets. And as a window cleaner, I didn't really like to impose on people. I didn't want to like ask them, can I use your toilet and things like this. And so I would try and do my best, but I was quite lucky really. I never really had any sort of seriously unfortunate accidents and things like this. But the advice was, you know, you've got this bowel disease, it's in your digestive tract. We're going to talk about drugs, we're going to talk about the fact that it's in your genes, it's hereditary, you know. You're an unfortunate individual, but we do have medication to treat this, and we do advise that you go home and you eat a lot of fibre. So the stuff that we don't digest, basically. Wood pulp, we may as well just eat anything really, cardboard and plastic, I mean, we can't digest that either. Gluten, you know, they never check me for gluten, I think it's criminal. You know, I can't believe what I know now. You know, one of the first things what I would ask my patient would be, well, what is your lifestyle like, what is your diet like? Tell us about your history. And you know, let's try and manage your diet. The problem for me was really grains, and much like Richard said, my diet was based around grains, and to come away from the doctor thinking, I'm just an unfortunate individual, you know, unlucky me, but there is drugs, And the answer potentially could lie in my diet, but coming from the other end of things, you know, eat more plants, whole plant foods. That way you're going to get lots and lots of fibre, whole grains, etc. And so I based all my meals around whole grains. Breakfast, porridge oats with fruit, whole fruit, goji berries, because you know they're a superfood. Never seen goji berries grow in Kent, but you know, there I am eating goji berries every morning thinking I'm doing something special. Lunchtime comes, I'm eating whole grain sandwiches and you know the nut infused bread and seeds and all that kind of stuff. And I did eat animal proteins. I've always believed in animal proteins, but it was much like these I've said today, you know, chicken, cod, very lean sources, cutting fat off. I didn't even like, can you believe, I didn't even like the fat. I almost became conditioned to eat lots of carbs, lots of sugary foods, things that would taste sweet or break down to sugars. And I was eating multiple meals per day, and something actually, in addition to just this typical dietary advice when you have a colon issue, for example, you know, eat loads of fibre, little and often. So just eat constantly, you know, don't give your gut where you have a problem any rest whatsoever, just little and often. So I was typically having 5 small meals per day. I remember snacking on almonds thinking that that was a superfood. And everything was getting worse, and so, you know, 2 years go by, I go back down to the doctors again because I'm thinking like, it's getting out of control and I can't really manage this very, very easily. They said, well, okay, you know, you're doing the right things, but we've got some medication for you, and I can't remember the name, but it was basically steroids, a very typical steroid treatment drug for IBD. Now these were pretty miraculous at first. I would say for perhaps 6 to 9 months, you know, I was quite fortunate to be on this drug in my opinion, because it lowered the frequency in which I was going to the bathroom. I gained a bit more confidence. I could leave the house and clean windows and get a good day in, and I thought, man, this is pretty good. But slowly but surely, things got worse again, and I was very, very conscientious about putting lots of grains, lots of colours, right, because I'm probably deficient in red or something like that. And so this is what I was doing. I was taking the medication, and things continued to get worse, and it was 3 years of doing this.
Well, Lee goes into more detail about his story, but again, if you visit the Kent Carnivore's channel, there's much more detail there, and it's much more visually. So it's not for me to tell Lee's story, but really it was to introduce you about the event. So again, the Kent Carnivore, another amazing story. And then the special guest was Dr. Kiltz, and I've followed Dr. Kiltz. I've listened to his podcast every week. He is just an amazing guy. So here's a quick introduction to his part of the day.
And I, as a physician, have learned from who? All of you. Medicine is social media. It is not the doctors, unfortunately, right now, but what's our job? To teach the doctors. And again, because we went into medicine to help people, not to hurt people. My sister had diabetes type 1 since age 4. She died at 52, and I saw the misery that she went through her entire life. But the doctors are trained in a way because of the Flexner report, which at one point basically took control to the wealthiest people who control the message for the masses, who are the peasants, the prisoners, the slaves, and the soldiers. But that's who we are. And I don't mind being that, by the way. And ultimately, we are all kings and queens, because who's in charge of your life? You are. But the problem is we've been brainwashed. Intentionally, maybe, I don't know that answer. I'm not a conspiracy guy, but I can't fix yesterday, I can only fix today. And as a human being, are we different? We're not different. We're identical. Our DNA, slightly different, not very much. I'm a surgeon. When I operate, it looks the same inside. But you know what I see a lot inside? Inflammation. Do you guys know what causes inflammation? Plants. Our immune system is perfectly great, but it is reacting to foreign antigens. That means something that doesn't belong in our body, but 99% of what gets in our body comes from animals or plants. Thank you. Plants are so good for you. Are plants live organisms? They are. Do they want to be eaten? No. But if they are eaten, are they dead? They're alive. They'll grow out of you. They will kill you. They will control you. Heroin, cocaine, marijuana, nicotine, caffeine come from what? Plants. What toxic chemical comes from ribeye, red, fatty meat? Nothing. Simple, right? Now, the story of humanity, we suppose it came out of the trees onto the grass. But did we eat the grass or the grass eaters? We are hunters. We are wolves and lions. We are not pigs, cows, and sheep. But what do you feed a domestic animal? Plants. When you eat a plant, you become a domestic animal. Is that simple and easy? Right? And so I grew up on fruit, fiber, vegetables, cereal, salad, seeds, and nuts, because that is what? Healthy. But long ago, the masters figured it out. If I feed the masses plants, they become addicted and controllable. And I control the hunting grounds. Now, why did I control the hunting grounds? Because if you eat the meat, you become what? The master. Who is the master of your life? I am. Can you say those words? I am the master of my life. If you blame anyone for anything in your life, who does it hurt? You. Who's in control? You are, I am, we are. Okay? And so as a physician, I grew up in LA, kicked out of school in a gang, couldn't read. My father in jail. I was dyslexic, I couldn't read. I was kind of like the crazy little kid, ran around, but one thing I was good at was math, but I couldn't read. Well, you can't read, you can't go to medicine, because I looked at what it took to be a doctor, and I said, this is going to work. But somehow I managed to become a doctor, to learn all the healthy things to teach everyone to do, which was mostly what? Plant-based, low animal fat diet. Okay? Well, as a fertility doctor, I took care of a lot of healthy women not conceiving. Now, they said, I'm healthy, I'm not conceiving. Does that make sense? What's the number one thing we're born for? Reproduction. That is it. And so they were eating a healthy diet. Now, how many of you have ever had your doctor ask you, tell me what you eat exactly? Never. Okay, so what you put in your mouth doesn't matter? Of course it does. Now, how do you make beer? Fermentation. It's all plants. And are you making beer in your belly all day long? Our children are running around with beer making in their bellies, alcohol circulating in their bloodstream, because they're eating a plant-based, low animal fat diet. Is fat good for you or bad for you? It's the best thing. Does your body want you to be fat or skinny? Fat. Big time fat. Because if you're not fat in a famine, guess what? You're fertilizer fast. These ideas are a little radical, but it's simple. Should you eat lean meat or fatty meat? Fatty meat. Because when you eat fat, what does it do to the microbes in the gut? Kills them. Which is what you want. Because the microbes, those probiotics, those beautiful good bacteria, they want to kill you. Because they are not good for us. They are deadly. But remember, there's a big business in selling all of that probiotic shit, right? You ever seen meat in the toilet? Never. When you eat plants, and I don't even know what a protein is. When we all say protein, there's either animals or there's plants. Now you could eat some microbes and other things in between, but let's just say there's plants and animals. Do you want to eat a skinny animal or do you want to eat a fat animal? Fat. Is there such thing as plant fat? Zero. There's plant oils. So as an ancient hunter, 50,000 years ago, 1,000 years, or even today, do you get any oils of significance from plants? You don't. Remember, all plant oils are industrial produced in order to control and kill you. Now, I do love olive juice and a martini. Extra filthy dirty from time to time, but is alcohol good for us? Do you know the American College of OBGYN in America, and probably here too, recommends red wine for pregnant lactating women? Yes, it does. And they recommend a plant-based diet, lean meats, and no red meat. Because if you eat red meat, what happens to you? You become the master, you become healthy, right? And so is there ever a plant required in the human diet? Never. Did you know that? I didn't know that. I too had arthritis, psoriasis, kidney stones, migraines, bowel bleeding, ton of bleeding out the other end. And my doctors say, oh, it's okay. You don't have anything serious. We looked inside a couple of times. Actually, I used to get it looked at all the time. I had anemia, I had bladder bleeding, and I used to teach meditation, prayer. I kind of do so a little bit. Meditation, prayer, yoga, acupuncture, in order to do what? Lower your stress, fear, all those things, right? Who's fearful in life? I am. You know what I'm afraid of? My wife. So ultimately, my patients, so infertility is really hard to go through. And many people would never go to the doctor and get their fertility stuff. But if they did, they'd run away quickly because it was too what? Emotionally hard. And so I thought, oh, meditation, prayer, do all these things, help them out, it helped. But then some of my patients were getting pregnant on this thing called paleo diet. And I'm like, if someone's getting pregnant on something and they're not paying me for it, I gotta know about it, right? And so I learned all about paleo diet. And what is a paleo diet? Hunter-gatherers. Now, I don't know what we're gathering, but I'm telling you, I'm going after that big beast. Do wolves and lions go after the skinny little things? They want the fat things, right? And I imagine our ancient hunting, we wanted to show off to the rest of the tribe on how we could kill the big beast. That's who we are, right? So I taught paleo, and then I had all those diseases I mentioned, and I got better. And then I found keto. I got better. And then one day I was watching, it must have been Richard Smith on YouTube about 15, 20 years ago. Some dude who was ripped, and he ate meat, and he didn't exercise. And I said, that one's for me. So I went carnivore almost 15 years ago, and 1 month, everything gone. I've never felt better in my life. Oh, I did find Jesus Christ probably around 25 years ago. That also helped me in this land. Whether it's Jesus, Moses, Muhammad, Abraham, I don't care. But you must have faith in who? God! Okay, say that one again. Who said that?
Yourself.
Yourself! AKA God. Nobody but God within all of us, my brothers and sisters. And so ultimately, was he a lamb or a lion? We are lions, so is he. And as lions, we eat what? Sheep. Makes you the strongest, most powerful person in the universe, but the most important part is love, kindness, generosity, right? And that's what this community is all about. The beauty is, we're kind of like the vegans used to be, a minority. But we want to teach this around the globe to our brothers and sisters, because without doing that, our children are going to suffer. And my daughter recently had a large fibroid removed. And why'd she get that? Plants. Anyone ever heard of a goiter? A goiter is a large damaged thyroid. How about goitrogenic foods? Do you know goitrogenic foods are tumorgenic foods to every cell of your body? See, we in medicine don't know this, don't talk about it. And so it's really our job and my job to help train your doctors. Be honest with them. Scare them a little bit, right? I did write some quick notes went down, but Salisbury steak. You guys know Salisbury steak? Salisbury steak was a doctor in America that in the Civil War, his men were dying of dysentery and pneumonia, and he put them all on meat. He wrote an amazing book. They all healed. Damn. I know there are a lot of questions here, but a really important one. then I'll stop with this, is that the bugs in the belly, remember, you eat a plant-based diet and a protein-based diet. Protein is not good for us. Fat is, not protein. Protein poisoning. But protein and plant sugars are fermentable. They grow in your belly, the microbes, they go out the rectum anus, they go up into the vagina, cervix, uterus, tubes, pelvis, because every disease a woman suffers from, including plant-caused ovarian sickness, PCOS. But the microbes also crawl up the esophagus into the upper and lower respiratory system and cause every disease you suffer from. And depression, anxiety is all secondary to what? Plant-based disease. That is it. Occam's razor says the simple answer is the one. And the simple answer is we are lions. We are not sheep. And when we realize that every one of our brothers and sisters are the same, and we want to help each other heal, and your suffering was for a reason to help us all learn and be better. And who amongst us has not suffered? None of us, right? Suffering strengthens. So a blessing and thank you to this man and this man for going around the globe and helping us all, and everyone who's sharing their words. And I really encourage everyone to do the same thing, because it's about sharing the word and inspiring all of us to live a better life. Thank you.
Well, that's the brilliant Dr. Kiltz, and his podcast is fantastic. I listen to it every week, and I'll put a link to his YouTube channel below as well. One confession to make, we did have Stephen Thomas, fantastic guy, but unfortunately I did the cardinal sin. I forgot to check the battery power, so once I started recording, the camera died, and I didn't know until after he'd done his bit, so I do apologise for that. Really interesting guy, loads of stuff on his YouTube channel, and some lives that they do, brilliant. Him and Richard do some fantastic lives, so highly recommended following that. So I do apologise for that. We are doing sorry, the dog is trying to chew my chair. We are doing a Carnivore get-together on the 2nd of August down in the West Country. More details will come out once we get the Christmas festive season out of the way. And I also had some good conversations with Richard Smith's partner in crime, and between them they put on the Carnivore conference. So I'm hoping to share more information in the new year of what they're up to, and try and tie in with what we're trying to do, so we can be better organised as carnivores, as groups, and help people that are even curious in carnivore, let alone the carnivore saints, to come along and enjoy and experience the lifestyle. So again, thank you again for watching. If you enjoyed it, please like. If you're interested in the type of content I produce, please subscribe, because it does trigger the algorithm to help me get the message out to a wider audience, and hopefully help people on their journeys and their challenges in life. Thanks again, and if I don't see you before, Merry Christmas.